Look, I think you all know who I am, what I stand for, and my legislative record. So I just want to tell you what I believe makes for a good legislator. Number one, I think you have to know your district. And there's nothing better to get you to know your district than to live here all your life. I grew up about a mile from here and rode my bike all over the county when I was a kid. I graduated from Northern Lebanon High School. I graduated from the Lebanon Vo-Tech. I worked at O'Sullivan in Lebanon for 7 years. It was a plastic factory. Then I started a business in Lebanon, on the other side of Lebanon in Avon, my recording studio. I was there for 7 years. Then I moved that business down to Main Street in Annville, and I was there for 14 years before I closed up shop there. I've lived my entire life in Lebanon County, and that gives you a little bit of instinct about what Lebanon counties are going to want from you when you go to Harrisburg. And that's exactly what fueled my initiative 10 days into the disaster emergency on COVID-19 to terminate Tom Wolf's disaster emergency declaration. It was instinct that Lebanon Countyans would not go for what he was going to do. 462 days later, Supreme Court fight, a lot of legislative battles, and then constitutional amendments that you folks went to the polls and voted on made Pennsylvania the only state in the nation to reduce its governor's emergency powers after COVID-19. It was all because I used the instinct I knew that Lebanon Countyans would want me to go up there in Harrisburg to do. The second thing that makes for a good legislator is knowing Pennsylvania as a whole, because all of Pennsylvania is not like Lebanon County, believe it or not. I wish it were, but it's not. Over the last 20 years, I've crisscrossed this state 4 different times on 4 different statewide campaigns, and I've gotten to know the different areas of Pennsylvania. I know for a fact that what the average Republican believes here in Lebanon County is not exactly the same as what the average Republican believes in Bucks County or Chester County or Allegheny County for that matter. And you have to know that when you go to Harrisburg to be a good legislator. You have to know where people stand. The third thing you need to know to be a good legislator is the legislative process. I've been following the legislative process for 10 years before I got elected, and now for close to another 10 as I'm being elected. Before I was even in office, I actually wrote legislation that was introduced word for word in the House and the Senate because I knew how the legislative process worked. You know, when you're up there in Harrisburg and you're dealing with a piece of legislation, those 2 things that I talked about first come into play a lot. You have to know, like I did with the COVID-19 stuff, what your district feels in their heart. But you have to also know what those other people in other areas of the state, especially the Republicans, think. And I want to tell you that all that goes into making a good legislator. But there's something else about that I think is very, very important. There seems to be a tendency in our party right now to have a circular firing squad where some people say, this Republican is not Republican enough, or that Republican is a rhino. And I want to tell you, that's going to kill us. We have to stop doing that. We need every single Republican vote we can get. What's happening right now, and to my chagrin, in this particular race, because we have a challenger, we are making our tent smaller by saying this person is not a good Republican or that person is not a good Republican. We're making the overall tent for Republicans smaller. And guess what, folks? We're 500,000 votes down to the Democrats statewide in Pennsylvania. If we make our tent smaller, all we're going to do is keep losing. And that's why I have a bit of chagrin about being challenged in this race. Look, everybody's free to run for office. I get it. But when you try to take out a solid conservative leader in the legislature, simply because you have sour grapes over what happened in previous years, it really takes away the resources that should be spent on winning Pennsylvania statewide. I should be out raising money and campaigning on behalf of other candidates in races that are not so safe for Republicans. I should not have to be spending resources here at home to battle someone who simply is running a sour grapes campaign. I'm a little disappointed by that, but look, everybody's free to run for office. In conclusion, I think I've done a good job in Harrisburg for Lebanon County. I think I've done a good job for the 102nd District. And with that, I would greatly appreciate your support and your endorsement. I want to tell you, I think this endorsement process is very important because you are elected Republicans just like I am. You were elected to represent the beliefs of the people in your precinct. You carry their word here. This is a vetting process. It is very important, and I would greatly appreciate your support tonight.